Those who do not fight will not survive. A battle royale between 13 or so people fought in a world we can only see in reflections. The last one standing will have their wish granted. This is the premise of the 2002 series, Kamen Rider Ryuki, the 12th overall Rider TV series and the third one following its revival in the year 2000. Kamen Riders fighting each other was nothing new. The riders of the previous series, Agito, while ultimately allying with each other, fought each other over honest misunderstandings. With the exception of another Agito, in Ryuki there would be multiple antagonist riders who would always pose a threat, but also allied riders who might have to be fought someday. Or repeatedly, because the show wanted more fights between the two most important ones, even when they really weren't that necessary. In my view, Ryuki is a series with a strong start that doesn't really know what to do once it reaches the midway point. Kamen Rider Agito and Kuga, while definitely sharing some similarities, are two very different series. Ryuki was a show that wanted to go even further with how different a Kamen Rider show could be. Overall, I think it is still worth a watch, and definitely worth revisiting for videos on this channel, and I was happy when an English subtitled Blu-ray was announced for 2023 by Shout Factory. The set includes all 50 episodes, and the director's cut of the movie, episode final. What this leaves out, not counting the Rider Time series, is the Hyper Battle video featuring Kamen Rider Agito and today's subject, Kamen Rider Ryuki Special, 13 Riders. A TV special airing between the 33rd and 34th episodes, 13 Riders is set in an alternate timeline to the main series. It presents a slightly altered setting for a what-if to how the Rider battle could play out in less than an hour. Our special begins with Ren, Kamen Rider Knight, dying. And that was quick, but they do have to fit in 13 of these guys after all. In reality, the special opens with a glimpse of the climax before having Kanzaki, the orchestrator of the fight between riders, introducing the special. Following the opening credits, we see the staff of Ore Journal, including protagonist Shinji, who is asleep under a desk. In the main story, Shinji sleeps at his office for a bit after getting kicked out of his apartment, before taking residence at the coffee shop Atori with Ren and Yui. Atori serves as the base of operations for the main trio. In the special, it's just used as the unimportant setting for one scene, so this is also where Shinji lives. Shinji starts his investigation into the recent disappearances, before almost immediately being attacked. Naturally, this causes the first rider to appear. Somebody else being Ryuki was a nice little surprise. What's less nice is his response to Shinji's question. We're about to see in a minute that he is a human, capable of speaking, so I don't get what they were going for here. Ryuki destroys one of the monsters, and himself. He's barely shown having trouble fighting two monsters at once, so it's a bit unexpected for him to just keel over so suddenly. Regardless, only riders and monsters are capable of leaving the mirror world, so the men hand Shinji the card deck, allowing him to become Kamen Rider Ryuki, while also warning him to stay out of the fight between the riders. Also, look, Keiichi Wada from Die Ranger is here. And look, he's gone in about 2 minutes. I would probably be fine if this was just a cameo, but just take a look at the DVD cover for the special. It sure is him featured next to all the main characters. After Shinji leaves the mirror world, he is confronted by Ren and Yui. They want him to hand over the card deck, but don't feel the need to properly explain things. I never understood this style of approaching someone. Telling someone that they'll be involved in a battle to the death is a great deterrent to them getting involved. Being cryptic, on the other hand, is a great way to get some people interested in the mystery, which is not what you were trying to do. Sakakibara, the original Ryuki, had handed Shinji a note, and Shinji tracks down one of the names to find answers. I'm not sure why he handed him a note, given that he didn't want him to be involved, but, This leads him to a prison to see Takeshi Asakura, Kamen Rider Oja. Their meeting goes well. Shuichi Kitaoka, aka Kamen Rider Zolda, has taken Asakura's card deck out of his possessions to ensure it won't end up in anyone else's hands. Hey, is that a reflective surface? You know, I think it was. Kitaoka finally explains the meaning of the fight to Shinji. After Kitaoka takes off, Yui shows up again to deliver the exposition she didn't give the first time she appeared. I won't ask how she, and later Ren, knew that Shinji would be here. That really is just one of those things that happens out of convenience, regardless of powers that I'm unaware of. This gives Shinji his main goal of the special, finding other reasonable writers who will work with him to destroy the mirror at the center of the mirror world to end the fight. Our next scene introduces a wealthy businessman, Itsuro Takamizawa, the writer introduced in this special, Kamen Rider Verde. Takamizawa teaches the kids at home that, for some people, there is no such thing as too much power. And through the means of an odd close-up no less, before insulting Shinji and having him removed from his building. Things start to get better for Shinji, however, as he just so happens to come across Ren in the park while he's talking to Miyuki Tezuka, Kamen Rider Raya. Tezuka has his backstory changed completely for the story. Whereas originally he was a fortune teller who had the mission of ending the Rider fight after his friend refused to enter and was subsequently killed by a monster, here he's a friend of Ren and Eri, the woman in the hospital that Ren is fighting to save. I believe this change is one that should work. Tying his and Ren's motivation together means more for Ren to hear the doubt about what they're doing from someone he already knows and shared a reason to fight with instead of it just being from Shinji. Additionally, it allows Tezuka to have a reason to be in the fight without trying to cram his original backstory in the, approximately less than 25 minutes left in the special? Where did the time go? If there's a potential downside to this, it's that it raises the question of why didn't he come to this conclusion when Sakakibara was still alive? I'd say maybe they just didn't ever communicate, but it doesn't seem to be a problem for the other writers. Just then, a monster shows up causing this dog to freak out. The trio, in Verde in his office, head into the mirror world to fight. I guess Shinji showing up caused Takamizawa to feel especially motivated today, since he doesn't go after any of the monsters but instead Tezuka. Less than 4 minutes after his introduction, Tezuka is killed by Takamizawa. On the one hand, something like this needed to happen. Maybe. The original Ryuki died earlier after fighting monsters, sure, but Tezuka's death at the hands of another rider was something that was needed to show that the other riders are playing for keeps. This is a fight to the death. On the other hand, it's been 4 minutes. Tezuka's death is still important for the plot and for Ren's character, but I don't know how much the viewer will care. I cared about the main timeline's Tezuka, but I want to keep in mind that this is supposed to be a separate story. I think. I'm not really sure. Actually, I'm not sure it did need to happen at all, or at least not this early. I'll complain about his and the next guy's death later. Ren's friend is dead, and he wants to pretend that this is alright with him. Shinji vows to end this fight and resumes looking for allies, which leads him to Jun Shibara, Kamen Rider Guy. He's rude and treats everything like a game. I don't care too much for him. Neither does Shinji. The behavior of the writers sends Shinji spiraling, causing him to create the scene that I think might have been one of my first exposures to Ryuki. Shinji lost his faith in humanity, but still goes to meet a detective who calls for him. As it turns out, it's Masashi Sudo, Kamen Rider Scissors, and he actually wants to help Shinji. Well, that's quite the turnaround from being a murderous officer of the law. Meanwhile, Ren is approached by Kitaoka, Takamizawa, and Shibara. The three of them see Shinji as a threat to their ambition, and they want to know where Ren stands on it. When Shinji and Sudo detect a monster, they go to fight it, and Shinji pulls out his survive form. For some reason. He has a single shoot vent to destroy the monster before returning to his regular form. I know it's because they want to promote the toys associated with his form change, but why not hold off till later? Like when he's actually backed into a corner. Instead of what we do get, where he's in his survive form for less than half a minute to finish off a rather unthreatening monster, and does not use it again for the rest of the special. At first, I wasn't sure if this was just me nitpicking about something that seemed like an odd choice, but I think there was the potential to have it mean something, or at least have it come across as actually cool. I like the survive form. The other four riders from the earlier scene show up to start beating up Shinji. Hit 2, scissors. Oh, well in that case, shame on you, TV special. Sure, maybe nobody watching this would expect the guy who was the first antagonist in the TV series to actually be an ally here, but I would argue that this isn't the TV series. Why couldn't Scissors actually be different here? The reveal of Pseudo as Scissors was an interesting development with writers' police characters if you happen to watch these shows in the order that they aired. In Kuga, Ichijo was a vital ally to Kamen Rider Kuga. In Agito, Hikawa was the first rider to appear, and often teamed up with Kamen Rider Agito before even knowing who or what he was. Then in Ryuki, you have Pseudo, hiding a body in a wall. He's not just willing to kill the other riders, but anybody he deems necessary. In 13 Riders, he shows up and does a heel turn less than 4 minutes after saying he wants to help. This is not interesting. I do not consider this to be a good use of what little time this special has to tell its story. They already tried doing something a bit different with Tezuka. Why not keep going and at least have Pseudo keep being an ally for the less than 1 minute he has left to live? Thankfully for Shinji, there's a super violent guy who isn't happy that he wasn't invited. Hey wait, didn't I say he had less than a minute to live less than a minute ago? Meant in the actual runtime, but it kind of worked for this video's length as well. The time to kill off Shinji comes, but since Ren is forced to do it, it doesn't happen. He can't get himself to actually go through with it. The time limit is reached for how long the riders can be in the mirror world, causing the conflict to postpone itself. Shinji chases down Ren in a manner filmed very oddly. It's different, and that's about it. Ren falls off his bike, allowing Shinji to catch up to him. Asakura finds them, forcing the two of them to run away. Ren convinces himself to continue the fight, and does so after he and Shinji are cornered by the others. Which others? All the others. The remaining 5 riders appear, justifying the title of this special, -2. Also, there's less than 8 minutes left in the special. A 2-on-9 fight ensues, with Ren taking Verde's final vent for Shinji before killing Verde himself. Kamen Rider Odin pulls out Shinji's deck and crushes it. The strong monsters guarding the mirror finally come out to fight the riders, allowing Shinji to walk over to Ren. Ren gives Shinji his card deck and asks him to look after Eri for him. Shiboro attempts to finish off Shinji when suddenly... It's a sudden death, and I genuinely forgot that it happened when I was writing this. Shinji transforms into Night when cornered, and pulls out the Survive form along with the insert song Revolution. It's nice. Also, yes, special, this is what you should be doing with the form change. Its inclusion here actually has a purpose of allowing Shinji to survive until the climax instead of just being there to advertise. I'm still not sure why it's something that just pops out randomly from the deck, but I guess I've made peace with that part. He easily moves through the writers, leading to the 2 different endings of the special, as voted on by the viewers. Shinji decides not to break the mirror, instead continuing the fight to seek out an answer. Personally, I don't buy it. Ending the fighting is what you wanted to do. People, including your supposed friend, have been killed from this conflict and will continue to be killed. I understand Ren forcing himself to fight at the end. Eri won't recover on her own, I think, but I cannot wrap my mind around why Shinji thinks there's something to find out here. If you, dear viewers, can think of something, please share it in the comments. Also, it's a 7-on-1 fight. I really don't know what he's expecting to happen. Shinji breaks the mirror, forcing everyone out of the mirror world. Life returns to normal, but not for very long. I think this is the better ending? Maybe. After both endings, Shiro Kanzaki appears to ask if this was a tragic ending or for the best, and suggests the other ending might have answers. Well, the broadcast ending was tragic, and the unaired ending was also tragic. Oh, thank you for that then. 13 Riders is not a good TV special. There's almost always potential in writer stories. An alternate timeline can be fun if you do fun and interesting things with it. The first big thing it wanted to do differently was what it did with Sakakibara. In both the main timeline and this timeline, Sakakibara was someone who was granted a card deck. In the main timeline, he covered every reflective surface and lived in fear until eventually getting killed by Dragredder. In this timeline, it's quite the difference. He made a contract with Dragredder and threw himself into danger to save people and stop the fighting. And he is only around for a couple of minutes. When I first heard that this special had somebody else be Ryuki and had Shinji become Kamen Rider Knight, I was expecting Shinji to have to wait around for one of them to die, and that he wouldn't become a writer until maybe the halfway point or something. Instead, Sakakibara is just used to establish Shinji's motivation. This leads me to another point I have some dissatisfaction with: the characters. Let's start off with the last 5 writers we see: Tiger, Emperor, Fam, Ryuga, and Odin. As presented here, they are not characters. The title of the special, 13 Writers, makes it seem like everyone would be involved here, and they are. Barely. I gotta imagine how disappointing this would be for somebody who wanted to see more of the 2 movie-only writers, only for Pam to have one line and be part of a group that, realistically, could have had less people in it to still have the same effect in the story. In regard to when this was airing, this aired about a month after the movie premiered, less than a week after Tiger was introduced, and a little over a month before Emperor would be introduced. Maybe the right way to look at this is just saying this as a bunch of cameos. But even then, that doesn't excuse the awful title. And it really doesn't excuse Odin. I don't even know if that's Shiro. Speaking of the Kanzaki family, Yui. From being one of the 3 featured characters in the opening credits and being greatly important to the story, to just popping up twice and not doing much. Her exposition is important. She tells Shinji about the main mirror, and if you keep the TV series in mind, it might be assumed that her own hope of ending the battle that her brother was orchestrating is still there. However, she, again, doesn't show up after that scene. There are limits to how many characters you can really use in less than an hour. Let's do a bit of a comparison with a piece of writer media that handles things much better in roughly the same amount of time: Kamen Rider Z.O. Putting visuals aside, since comparing a theatrical film with a made-for-TV movie is unfair, Z.O. has, 4 characters who matter, plus the antagonist and a couple of bit parts that aren't overextended. It also has a very straightforward premise instead of trying to do something with a premise that was intended for a show to play out over the course of a year. The side characters aside, there's only about 3 characters that aren't straight-up antagonists. There's just something about the difference made in a character like Kitaoka. Did he try to kill everyone in the TV series? Sure, because he had a good opportunity to try it, but he is often a neutral party. He will still participate in the battle, but he can often converse with the others and isn't constantly out to get them. It helps that the main timeline doesn't have a way for others to take away his chance at living, but that's beside the point. It just doesn't sit well with me that he and most of the others were able to just cooperate so easily with each other to take certain others out of the fight. Asakura especially sticks out since he really does not work well with others. My final thought on the usage of the characters is this: Raya and Scissors should have been kept alive until they reached the climax of the story. This is for 2 reasons. Firstly, this would have allowed the both of them to not be brushed to the side so fast and not run the risk of the latter character feeling pointless. And secondly, this would have given us a fight with 13 Riders. 13 Riders is a what-if that has its moments, but not nearly enough else going for it. I can't say whether or not it was wasted potential because I'm really not sure this was a good idea. There were times where I wasn't really sure whether or not this special should be seen with the main timeline being a reference point. At the point that I'm writing this in my script, this is likely to be my longest video. I tried to cover as many of the different thoughts I had about this as I could. Despite this, like any other video made by human beings, I possibly forgot something. In fact, I know I did. I had to revise the script while I was reading it aloud. Feel free to bring up anything I missed and your own thoughts about Ryuki in the comments. And if you made it all the way to the end of this video, you have my thanks.